What prompted the hashtag Data Must Fall campaign? What do network providers charge more for out-of-bundle data? Why did Parliament instruct network operators to restructure their data plans by November? And is ICASA failing to rein in big network operators? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. Last week, the Portfolio Committee on Telecommunications and Postal Services held public hearings into the cost of communication in response to the rise of the hashtag Data Must Fall campaign. In its response, the committee said that network operators have just over a month to get their act together. Either they trim their data costs or the National Assembly will order them to do so. When probed on the high costs of data, Vodacom's head of innovation, Jannie van Zyl, said, and I quote, "Data cannot disappear. It is consumed by your handset. Sometimes you use your data, sometimes your handset uses it in the background that you don't know about it," close quote. But will network operators heed ICASA's warning? We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial is 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. My guest today is Dale McKinley. He's a representative from the Right to Know campaign. And by the way, we invited all 4 cellular network providers and none were available by the time we went on air. Actually, some responded to say they don't want to participate. But yeah, what prompted the Data Must Fall campaign? Dale, welcome to Question Time.
Thank you, Mpho.
Well, let's talk about this Data Must Fall campaign. What prompted it?
Well, if you allow me, before we start that, I wanted to take the opportunity as the Right to Know campaign just to say that what happened today here in this public broadcaster was simply outrageous. And we want to express our views, and I know that many people are going to find this controversial and otherwise, but we want to express our views that we are here. We hope that the public broadcaster will recover from this crisis that it's in, and that governance will come back to this broadcaster, that people will be able to do their jobs, and that we will return the public broadcaster to the way it should be. We will be marching tomorrow to some of the key advertisers of the SABC to pressure them here to also join this campaign. So I thank you for the opportunity before that to say those things.
Okay. What are you talking about in particular?
Well, I'm talking about the fact that, you know, here we are in a talk show, and I think that most people, including myself, when we come to the SABC these days, we feel sometimes that we cannot say what we want to say, that we cannot be critical of the things that we need to be critical about, and we cannot speak truth because otherwise we'll be censored or blacklisted. I might not be able to appear on the SABC, or many of us, as a result of these things.
Okay. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue with our show. This is Question Time, and we'll be taking your calls. 089-110-4210. We're talking the data costs. This is Question Time.
You see this, but you feel this. You see this, but this is what you feel. You don't see this, but it feels something like this. And this is what you drive. The Audi A4 110 kilowatt Sport from only 5,999 per month. And we'll cover almost 3/4 of the deposit. We'll pay for the dream so you can drive the reality.
Do you need a funeral policy?
Joy is found in the little things. Ke ho phedisa, ho fepa le ho hodisa.
Ukuba ibona ukuvela kwethuba lalokho okungenzeka.
In being there when one journey ends and another begins. 'n idee van die klein dingetjies wat kosbaarder en erger word.
Life is the gift of growing new memories each day.
So that our loved ones can preserve them after we are no longer here.
Life is a gift to us.
Since 1918, AFBOB has comforted and supported South African families in their time of need.
Protecting their loved ones' memories with respect and dignity.
Plus, committed and trusted funeral representatives
with more than 250 branches nationwide.
There for you every hour of every day.
AFBOB provides a complete funeral service solution for everyone, even if you're not an AFBOB policyholder.
Make sure your family comes first. Always. AFBOB. We're here for you. If you would like AFBOB to call you about a new policy, SMS family and your name to 41790.
Welcome back, and indeed, you're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Dale McKinley. He's a representative from the Right to Know campaign. Our number is 0891104210. Twitter handle at Question Time 24. Let's talk about the Data Must Fall movement. Indeed, data is expensive.
It has been for a long time, and customers have been ripped off. We have South Africa is in the top 10 in the world in terms of data costs and airtime costs. To give an example, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia are up to 10 times cheaper than we are. And there's no reason for the high costs of calls. So as the Right to Know campaign, we raised this issue about 2 years ago in what we called a Right to Communicate campaign. We marched on ICASA. We pressured them to force the service providers to try to pull down those costs. And they have not done so. What has been done is that some of the interconnection rates have gone down, but the cell phone costs and particularly the data costs remain very high. And recently it's very good to see that the campaign has received an injection from Tabo Touch and others who have basically put this in the public mind again, and Parliament, it's good to see that they're responding finally as well to this. So this is something that is not new. This is something that has been in need for a long time to lower these data costs.
So why is it that South Africa has the highest cost?
Well, there's 2 or 3 different reasons for that. One is that in the 1990s, when we had the opportunity to have a real public communications, telecommunications network, instead of setting up a really good public network, we privatized it all. So Vodacom, which used to be owned predominantly by the state, was predominantly privatized. Then MTN and others came on board later on. And private companies are in it for profit. They're not interested necessarily in providing low costs. So that's the one reason, is the privatized network and then the lack of regulation and lack of enforcement. Our Constitution says we have the right to impart and receive ideas. In other words, the right to communicate. And yet, if you don't have money to buy that data time and that airtime, you can't do that. So we are essentially having a situation where ICASA, which is the statutory body that's supposed to regulate this, hasn't been doing its job. And they've been in a cozy relationship with the cell phone providers. And there's been a revolving door. Notice, when ICASA commissioners quit, where do they usually end up being employed? In the cell phone providers themselves. And so you have this very cozy relationship, and that has resulted, and Parliament hasn't done its job as well in terms of overseeing and passing legislation that could bring the cost down.
But aren't these network providers protected by law to do what they are doing?
Well, our laws basically need to be amended, as we have done with many laws. They need to be tightened. The regulations certainly need to be tightened to give effect to the realization of the constitutional right. So yes, they're not doing anything illegal under the law as it stands. It's nobody's accusing them of having criminal activities by charging them. What we're saying is that it's fundamentally against the spirit and the intent of the Constitution, and the access to information and the access to be able to impart that information for people to be able to communicate. We have this celebration of this new technology, smartphones. We have 90% of our population that has cell phones. We have all this new high-speed fiber networks being installed across our country. And yet, the vast majority of people simply can't afford to access that infrastructure. That's a fundamental problem.
Sidiko, you're in Pretoria. Welcome.
Thank you. First, let me address the issue of, it's important that today you just got an opportunist who used your platform to address certain issues before going to the topic. I'm disappointed with him for hijacking the program. But having said that, the issues of data that is unaffordable, especially to the poor and the working class, must be attended to. Mm-hmm. It is high time that these corporate sectors that are milking the poor make sure that they comply and make sure that we all afford data, because some of us are using this data for study, some are using it for their own small businesses. So the companies must make sure, in fact, the government must make sure that they put a tariff that all the companies must follow. Thank you, Mpo.
Thanks very much, Sidiko, there. Well, condemning you firstly for making the announcement that you did and then addressing the other issues.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that's probably natural. Most people don't want to hear certain things, but that's okay. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about, which is, I think the vast majority of people out there would agree with this, that their experience, we have done research as the Right to Know campaign. We went out into rural areas, we went out into townships and other places, and we asked people, about their experiences with data time. And for example, you said in your introduction that the head of one of the cell phone companies was talking about data doesn't disappear. Well, it does. It certainly does disappear. It disappears into the pockets of Vodacom and MTM and Cell C. That's where it disappears to. So, for example, the Consumer Protection Act explicitly states that data packages and cell phone packages should have a 3-year lifespan. 3 years. It shouldn't go away. And yet people tell us that after 30 days, it disappears from their phone. It's taken away. So this is where we could potentially have some illegal activity taking place. We have people telling us that they're making very large sacrifices. Instead, when someone in a rural area needs to call a hospital or call their school, they have to buy airtime, and they're spending money that they could spend on food, on transportation, on other needs, on cell time. That shouldn't be a choice that they should be having to make. So the experience of ordinary people all across our country is one where the cell phone companies are profiteering on the backs of people who can't afford that.
And let me just repeat that we had indeed extended an invitation to all the network providers, but hey, they don't want to be on question time. But we're taking your calls. Please use your airtime. And you can also use your data, sending us your tweets at QuestionTime24 before it disappears. There, the number to dial 089-1104-210, our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. We're talking hashtag data must fall. Should it fall indeed? And we're talking about the prices here. Now, somehow I have a feeling, and this is Mpo's feeling, that something illegal is happening here. I know that perhaps the law may be allowing them to do certain things, but somehow I feel that the Constitution should somehow be protecting us. We are just not aware.
Absolutely, and I think that that's the responsibility for implementing and making the Constitution real comes from our elected representatives. And that's why it's very, very good to finally see the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee basically saying, look, this is an issue. We want ICASA to regulate. We want them to force the prices down. We're finally listening to people. It's taken years for them to do that and to give effect to that right. Because it's fine for us, for example, to talk about all of this communications technology, but if 60 to 70% of our population can't enjoy it, well, then it's not a right, is it?
Natile in Vollis.
Good afternoon, Mpo and your guest.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, what I want to say, data must fall, man. Because I spend more than 80 rand a day for data only. You see, so I'm using MTN. Please, man, they must think about us, man. They're doing a lot of money. Please, data must fall, please.
Okay.
So I use extension that's like each and every day. Please, they must think about us, yes.
Okay, Natile, thanks very much. Well,
thank you.
And it would appear that indeed people are using a lot of money on data.
They are. In fact, our research has shown that in some cases, people are using up to 40% of their income on data costs. particularly in the rural areas where the infrastructure is very bad oftentimes, and you have to call people that are 10, 20, 50 kilometers away simply to get a basic service. For example, as I said, a hospital or a school,
Yes.
or whatever the case might be. And this is the situation with regards, let's talk about SMSs, for example. So
Yes.
a lot of people use the texting services.
Yes.
If you don't have a smartphone, then you have to text normally. Well, we found out through our research last year that each text cost the cell phone companies less than 3 cents for one text. But they were charging up to 60 cents for a text. Now that is over 2,000% profit on a text. And you add all of that up, millions of texts every day across the country, that's a lot of money. That's a hell of a lot of money. So in that context, it's as you say, it's not illegal what they're doing. They're not breaking a specific law, but they're breaking the spirit of the law. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that. And particularly because the people that can least afford it are the ones paying the most. The other issue is most poor people have to take prepaid cell phone contracts. If you're wealthy, if you're middle class, you can take a contract, not a problem. You can post-pay, you pay after the fact. But otherwise, you have to have prepaid. Everybody knows that prepaid calls cost more than contract calls. Prepaid SMSs cost more. So once again, you're punishing those that are least able to afford data and airtime.
Bushi in Protea Glen.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Bushi?
I'm okay.
Yes.
It's been a while. I've been trying to call you. Finally, I go through.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Paul, you know what? I'm a bit concerned regarding the data thing. It really has to fall. I'm working from home. Like I'm spending 260 for MTN data, which lasts me for something like 3 days. So in a month, I'm spending a lot of money. So really it has to fall.
Whoa, okay. Thanks very much, Bushi, for the call. Is there a way that, and I don't want to suggest that this is happening, we've had the collusions happening in the construction industry, the bread areas.
Cartels, yes.
Yeah, you know those cartels that operate, although they are competitors, but somehow they find it necessary. My director has just given me the right word. Colluding against the poor. Now, is it possible that something of this nature could be happening here? Why are they all expensive? I know Telkom will say, oh no, we're a bit cheaper and all that.
Well, so will Cell C. Cell C will tell you they're the young boys on the block and they've come in and they're trying to drive costs down, and they have done a little bit in that regard. But yes, of course, it's eminently possible that this is taking place. I mean, let's be real. We have a telecommunications sector that is dominated by 3 companies. 3. That's not a lot. And one of them, particularly Vodacom, is quite dominant, even more than the other 2. And so it's not beyond the realm of imagination. And certainly, I think it would be consistent, as you say, with other practices to say that the Vodacom and Cell C and MTM as the 3 main ones are sitting there and saying, of course, we don't want to lower these costs. We don't want to compete and drive each other's costs down too much. We want a nice medium here where we're making lots and lots of money. Our cell phone companies are amongst the most profitable in the world.
Yeah.
And I've just seen that, for example, MTN is again being approached by the Nigerian government with allegations that they spirited out over 10 billion rand worth of profits from Nigeria itself. Even though the data costs are lower. So, of course it can be, Paul. Of course it can be.
Dougie, you are in the Val. Welcome.
Hi, Paul.
Today I must teach you how to pronounce it properly, Dougie.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay. Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's easy. Listen, yeah, I agree that data must fall, but everything else is falling. Fees must fall, roads must fall, Zuma must fall. Where's South Africa? Are they going to say the next thing is South Africa must fall? Because it's not good, this. I mean, somebody's got to pick up the bill somewhere, but yeah, I agree that things are expensive. I'm on prepaid. I'm on prepaid Telkom, I'm on prepaid Vodacom, and things are expensive. But the way we're going on in this country, EFF, everything for free. Hello?
EFF stands for everything for free.
Yeah.
Oh, not the economic freedom fighters. Okay.
No.
Okay.
So yeah, it's terrible what's happening in our country. It's terrible. It's just not good.
But Dougie, as a pensioner yourself, how much are you spending on average on data or airtime?
On airtime on my Telkom line, about 100 Rand a week. So it's about 400 Rand a month.
Okay.
On Telkom.
Does that include?
And on my Vodacom is about 55 Rand.
Per week?
A week.
Okay.
So it's a lot of money.
Well, does that include calling question time, Dougie?
Hey?
Does that include calling question time?
It includes calling question time, but I enjoy speaking to you guys.
Okay,
I
Dougie.
enjoy giving my thoughts. But really, I think the last thing we need is for South Africa to fall.
Okay, Dougie, thank you very much there. Dougie, one of our regular callers there. Pensioners, like you were saying, 25, almost the average of 25% of people's income goes to
well, if you listen to
comms.
Dougie there, if you added up what he said, he's spending almost 600 to 700 Rand a month on data and cell
And
phone
he's a
and
pensioner.
airtime as a pensioner. Now, if you take the average pension of a pensioner, it's about 1,200, 1,300 Rand a month. That's almost 50%. I don't know what Dougie's economic situation is, but for people, a large amount of people here, that would be just outrageous to be able to spend that amount of money. And I want to say to Dougie and to many of the listeners here, is that it's not about someone has to pay for these things. It's about profiteering. It's about what is fair. And whether or not in our new digital age, in our communicative age, whether now we have a situation just like education, where that's a right. Everybody should have a right. Every child should have a right to go to school, that everyone should have a right to be able to communicate. If only those who are wealthy, only those who live in the urban areas, if you live in Melville down the road and have fiber optic, but you live down in Westbury and they're never going to put fiber optic there because it's poor people and they're not going to be able to pay for that. Well, then we have what we call digital apartheid. We have a situation where those that have are able to enjoy all the benefits, those that don't. And our Constitution explicitly was trying to overcome that divide in our country.
Can we, as South Africans, then put our faith in people like you, in ICASA, and the National Assembly?
Well, I wouldn't say put our faith in myself or the right to know. We're a civil society organization. We're here trying to have the voices of the people heard and to represent that. But I think that we must be active citizens. I think you can see by the response to this Data Must Fall campaign by Parliament that representatives will respond when they feel pressure. We live in a democracy, and we must speak out. We have a constitution that is amongst the most progressive in the world, and we must give it meat. We put meat on that bone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe in Polokwane.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, Joe.
All right, man. Now data must fall, my brother.
Okay.
These guys are taking us for a ride. Especially us in the rural areas. Okay, I work in Polokwane, but I'm from a rural area.
Okay.
In the rural area, that data gets finished while you're trying to download something because the network is so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And in Mamvuka village, Vodacom, they've installed this tower. For a month now or 2 months, they still haven't configured it. It's just standing there, they're chowing our data, they're not going to do anything because they know that they're making a lot of money on this data. I mean, you go there, you sit there, you want to upload something on internet. It takes hours. Before you knew it, your data is gone.
Yeah. Joe, thank you.
Data must fall.
Okay. Thank you for the call, Joe. Well.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe makes a very important point, which we were making earlier on, is the infrastructural inequality. So what we have is a lot of people who are in rural areas who get their calls dropped on a regular basis. And yet, if you have spoken for 10 seconds, they'll charge you for the minute. Oftentimes, the cell phone providers won't charge you on a per second basis, they'll charge you on a per minute basis. So you lose 80% of your airtime, even though it's not your fault that the network is not working properly. So once again, those that have the least access to the most decent infrastructure are the ones that are suffering the most. So on all respects, and not only in terms of what the cell phone providers are doing, but they must roll out proper infrastructure equally across the board. We can't just have everything in the urban areas, everything in Gauteng, and then very little in Limpopo or the Northern Cape or the rural Eastern Cape. That in fact makes things worse and makes the divisions worse.
Well, I would say, and I want your view here, we are victims of a good business model.
Well, I mean, that's a very nice way of looking at it. I would say that we're victims of greed. I think that what you have seen, not only with the cell phone providers, but as you say, with the construction companies, with many of the monopolized industries in this country, that they have been sucking us dry. And charging rates, and not only consumers, but also the state itself, public monies oftentimes, way over what is a fair price. And in order to bring those things down, it's not about things being for free, everything being for free. It's about proper regulation and what is a fair and equitable solution to everybody, so that we have a situation where every citizen enjoys the same rights, not simply because of where you live or because of how much money you have.
Who's going to help us?
Well, I think we must say Parliament, first of all, must do its job. I'm glad to see that Parliament is finally making some noise. Okay. So let's get the proper legislation. Let's have our ICASA get onto their job and put the regulations in at the same time. These are our two statutory bodies.
I thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was question time for today. A big thank you from me and the entire crew. I've got